The following podcast contains strong language. Hello and welcome back to this Ciné Rambles podcast. You're listening to Nick
And Andrew.
and we're finally back again, hopefully devoid of any technical problems like we had last week.
We can hear you.
Yeah, and we've got Andrew being healthy and not lurgied up.
No lurg here.
No,
Lurg
all
free.
clear. Let's hope. Yeah, been doing good otherwise.
Yep. All good.
Yeah. Have you left the house yet recently?
I went for a walk. Quite nice.
Just the one.
Yeah. It's pretty
I've been
chill.
going for a walk like every day, mate. Get on my level.
Oh, God. Sorry, some of us
Yeah.
aren't as privileged to have legs.
Do you not have legs?
Oh, that was really weird. I'm sorry. Okay, can we just move on?
Yes. Look,
Cut the
let's
bit
go
about
on to
legs
our...
out.
Let's staying in.
Oh, God.
Let's get on to this week's correspondence. So we've got a message from Zombies in Pants, who says, thoroughly enjoying these and loving the insight provided in the fundamentals. He then goes on to ask, what is the plan going forward in terms of releases slowing or drying up?
Well, Mr. Pence, firstly, I want to say thank you very much.
Yes?
I put a lot of passion into the fundamentals, so I'm glad to see you enjoy it.
Yeah, it seems to be one of our more popular segments, so I'm glad it's doing so
it's
well.
the ones I get angriest about.
Yeah, I mean, last week's was fantastic. Get so passionate about wands.
Well, I just got really angry about it, you know?
Freud would be proud.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of upcoming releases, so I mean, Field of Streams is our sort of answer to, instead of doing reviews of recent things,
Well,
since there are no.
on top of that, there are new releases going on to Netflix and Amazon Prime, and now Disney Plus as well.
Yes.
Because they're,
So,
I mean, they're talking about putting Mulan on Disney Plus now.
instead of cinema release, are they going to try and... Because
Instead of cinema release, they might put it on onto Disney Plus.
So I wonder if there'll be like an interesting sort of, I guess, point in history where we'll have things debuting, like premiering on streaming platforms, then getting a later cinema run once all this unpleasantness clears up.
I'm not sure, actually. That's a good...
Because it'd be strange for films like geared...
know.
For films geared with like a specific cinema release to then not get it at all and only
Especially
get streaming.
Disney films.
Yeah.
Because Disney's
So that'd be
so
interesting to see.
huge.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that would go.
Yeah.
But yeah, when there are sort of new releases, we'll try and review them
Yep.
via Netflix and the like, as long as we have access to the programs. In the meantime, yeah, we'll just be recommending some older hits, as it were. Because this is a great time in isolation to try and catch up with the backlog of things that we haven't ever gotten round to before. Like,
Yeah.
I've got something like 1,500 films in my watch list at the moment.
It's a lot of films.
Slowly getting through them.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is we're going to do some retro reviews, aren't we?
Yes.
Because
We'll
there's
try and make
lots
them
and
somewhat
lots and
relevant.
lots of classic films that I've never seen.
Absolutely. And there's an idea we've got for a new segment where we, revisit a classic film that Andrew has never seen and I maybe haven't seen for a long time.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they actually stand up from like a modern perspective.
Yeah. See if they age
So
well
that's-
or not.
Yeah. So that's something to look forward to. Maybe a few weeks' time we'll start that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've also got a question from a
Oh, yes.
viewer. They've asked.
His name is?
It's Ross. It's my brother.
It's Ross.
He asks, what do we think will the next trend in cinema be? And will there be an end to superhero movies being the, churned out?
So the next trend in cinema.
It's very hard to
Interesting.
call.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's sort of this sort of new wave of feminist film.
that's what I think. We're going to get
Yeah.
a lot of the
With
response
like Ocean's
to Me
8
Too.
and yeah, there's like Ocean's 8. There's like the new Bond is going to be a female agent, isn't she?
Yeah, or the new
And, like-
00, not Bond. I think is the
Yeah, Bond's being sort of presumably is going to die, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then
That's
the new
what-
agent
Yeah,
taking the moniker of 007, yeah. So there's definitely sort of a move towards sort of like female-led franchises. So I think that's probably going to be the next sort of fashionable trend in terms of blockbusters, I reckon.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Mulan, for example, coming out this year,
Yeah.
would have been sort of part of that.
And Black Widow as well.
Yes, that's the point.
And Wonder Woman as well.
Oh yeah, because that Wonder Woman 84 was supposed to come out this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they moved it to August, which is interesting because everything else has been like, oh yes, we're postponing it until further notice because we don't know when things are back. Wonder Woman's like, nope, we're coming out in August.
I feel like August might be safe somewhat. I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to get... This is going to age terribly, probably, but I think... I reckon by about July we'll be okay again.
Yeah. It just seems brave putting a new date on it.
But I suppose the earlier they can set a date, the better they can like prepare for it in terms of like rebuilding the hype train and marketing and stuff.
Yeah. It's just interesting that that's the only one. Like none of the Marvel films or any of those kind of things put a date on it.
Yeah, and if they have,
Wonder
like,
Woman
with No Time to Die, they
Yeah.
pushed it all the way to November, which is really out the way.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about Tenet, you know, the Nolan film?
I haven't, actually, for a long time.
Because that was going to come out in July, but presumably has now been shifted, but I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that either.
It. Ooh.
That's interesting.
I was looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. Anyway, will we see an end to the superhero films? Yes. I think I think it's tapering out already.
Yeah, I think we're seeing it. Because, I mean, Endgame, as we've said before, was like the big sticky climax of all of it. And now we're getting the last sort of, you know, drops from the bottle, so to speak, with Far From Home and Black Widow and stuff. And then it's going to...
So I don't think Marvel films will ever end, but I don't think they'll ever reach the heights they will again. Especially not 3 films a year. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, especially as now, because Disney's acquired 20th Century Fox, it's got all these new franchises to play with. I think Marvel, it will definitely still be produced films that I think they'll be a lot fewer and a lot less, like a lot lower profile as well.
Yeah, but they've shifted a load of stuff onto Disney Plus, like you know, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier or whatever it's called, the Eternals as well, maybe I think is now on Disney Plus. Like all these things have been shifted onto Disney Plus, which I think I don't know how to feel about it really, because I feel like I know they're not, because they're Disney, like an absolute powerhouse, but I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot because they're like, oh yeah, it's vital viewing if you want to see any of the further films. Like that's like, I know it's an advertising
holding a
thing.
Franchise hostage. And
yeah, but I feel like
won't stand for it.
Twatty move, and also that just makes me not want to bother with any of it then.
Exactly. I think
you know
that
kind
of, because that's aggressive marketing really. I think that's going to turn some people off, except for like the absolute, you know, devotees.
But if they're telling you like, oh, you have to have seen this obscure TV show that you've got to pay a monthly subscription for to go and see this film, I'm like, well, I don't care.
It's not
I'd just rather not see that film.
Yeah. It's also kind of like, I'm not sure about bad writing and such, but I mean, it's not a good idea to have a film be completely impenetrable if you haven't done copious background lore. Like every film should stand alone.
It should, but they've got away with it so many times, haven't they? We're like, look at Infinity War and Endgame, are both arguably. I mean, you don't know any of those characters. They're not introduced at all, other than in their films previously.
No. I suppose, I mean, I don't know about you, but a TV show to me is a big time commitment as opposed to a film. Like,
yeah, that's the other thing.
I'll happily watch 1 or 2 films, you know, in a franchise to catch up for another film, but to watch, like, you know, say 3
1 or 2
seasons
series
of,
as well.
Yeah, with like say 8 to 10 hours each. That's a big commitment for one film. I probably won't do it.
The other thing with this Marvel, especially with the series, is like the series can't have any real impact anyway, because they're not going to put like the major events in the series. Because if you remember, do you remember Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I remember it existed, but I never watched it. But that went on for like
I watched
7 seasons or something?
Yeah, exactly. There's loads of seasons, but who watched it?
Yeah, and it was all it was all tangential, wasn't it? None of it ever went anywhere majorly.
Well, it was supposed to be like massive tie-ins with all these things, and there's like, oh yeah, it ties in with Thor: The Dark World, and also there's tie-ins with Winter Soldier and all that, and it's like, but they tried to build. It's like things happen in that series. It's like, oh, this is world ending. It's like, well, it's not, because if it actually was, there'd be like 50,000 Avengers there by now. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's sort of the spin-off problem is when you're on like a lower key, like D story, you can't really have anything too exciting happening.
Which means it's going to rely really heavily on like close, tight-knit stories. Do you mean I can't really have anything that big or that universe changing, because they'll leave all that to the films. So it's like, what's the point?
It's going to be like just 30 hours of fluff, essentially.
Yep. So you can catch all of that on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Just need to sign your life away.
Well, it's not new for anyone other than us.
Over here in the UK, because it's only just released last week, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, well, Americans have been chomping away at it since November, was it? I think.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Okay, so just quickly before we go on to Fielder Streams, let's have a quick look at the news. I mean, there's not going to be a huge amount going on, as you can tell, from the shutdown of the country and to some extent the world. But as you were saying last week about, not last week, a couple weeks ago, about some new releases are being available now on the home streaming platforms, like The Hunt has recently come out.
So there's a thing called Home Premiere,
right?
Which
is this like
YouTube
Sky Cinema
doing.
then, or
yeah, similar, I think. But obviously, various films are going on various different platforms, but YouTube seems to have quite a few of them.
That's good.
So the thing I wanted to say was, they are charging so much money for them.
It's like £20 each, aren't they?
Yeah, so the Invisible Man, which we reviewed a few weeks ago, has come on to Home Premiere, and it's £15.
It's crazy.
It's like
3 times what like a ticket would be.
Yeah, that's 3 times a cinema ticket. It's like, I know the idea is that you'll have maybe like on average 3 people watching, so they're getting 3 cinema tickets out of it. Basically, is what I assume is the.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
But what if you don't have 3 people watching?
What about if you're a loner like us? If you're a film critic.
What if you? I mean, I was interested to see The Hunt because I feel like it's going to be an absolute shit smear.
Yeah.
And want to review it, but
I don't want to pay 15 quid for a shit smear.
Exactly, like.
Which I suppose is little comfort for the companies releasing it. But
no, yeah, but I just feel like, especially with everyone stuck indoors now and no one can work, why are they charging so much for something when there is Netflix, Amazon Prime out there who are giving you stuff for not for free, but for part of your subscription,
literally for half the price per month, and you get like
per month you're getting
to all of it,
thousands of
that's the thing,
films
you're right,
and TV.
It's not that it should be like, they shouldn't be free, obviously, but
it shouldn't be free, but it should be.
There's so much competition. There's so many other things we can be like. This is the prime time for like streaming services to be like vying for our attention because there's nothing else to do. So it seems crazy to have them that expensive.
The other thing is, you don't own it after that. It's rent. That's £15 to rent it for 48 hours.
Yeah, and while on Amazon Prime, to rent it for the same kind of time is like £3-4.
Yeah, I think it's
crazy.
I think you're right. I think it's $3.99 to rent it for 48 hours. I think it might even be 72 hours.
Yeah, and I mean,
like,
Invisible Man was
insane.
It was okay, but I mean, like, there's nothing out at the moment that's doing this release that's like absolutely must watch. Most of them pretty sort of meh, aren't they, for the most part? So it seems weird.
I don't think it matters about like the quality of the film. Doesn't
no,
really
not so much. But like, in the sense that I don't know who's gonna, when there's so many other great films to watch at the moment on various platforms, why you'd spend £15 for like Military Wives.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I just feel like they've set their price way too high, hoping that a couple of idiots will buy it. But I feel like I wouldn't pay that. I wouldn't pay that for a cinema ticket.
No.
I
mean,
like,
even
why
in
would
London,
I pay 3 times the amount for a cinema ticket to watch a film that I'm not in cinema experience, you know,
because
you're no way going to get the same cinema experience in home as you would, and for 3 times the price. What's the point?
Exactly. A big part of what you're paying for when you go to a cinema is the cinema apparatus, the massive screen, the 4K projector, the like 12.1 surround sound. That's a big part of
Exactly.
it. So
like,
to
you
pay
go
even
there
more
for the quality, yeah,
to see it on like your little. I mean, home cinemas are pretty good nowadays, but they're not cinema good yet. And it's
No.
crazy. Like even like the BFI IMAX in London, like probably one of the biggest, most technically advanced cinemas in England, isn't that expensive for a ticket. That's still like
exactly.
£10
like,
maybe. It's crazy.
It's
But
just insane. So YouTube, if you're listening,
lower your prices.
lower your prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So speaking of streaming platforms, shall we get on to Field of Streams?
Yeah, let's.
So we'll start with, we've had a suggestion for Field of Streams from Ross, actually, who's asked us to recommend Altered Carbon, which I know you've seen. So if you'd like to take that away.
Well, I've seen the first series. I haven't seen the second.
Okay.
But it's something I might touch on in a fundamental in future.
Ooh.
Because I have read the book as well.
Exciting.
And it's an interesting case where I actually enjoyed the series a lot more than I enjoyed the book.
Right.
The thing is with Altered Carbon, it's very, very dense sci-fi, and it throws you in at the deep end.
I remember you telling me that the lore was quite impenetrable, to a new fan.
So the thing is, with the series, they get away with it a bit more, or it's easier. It's more, it's easier to get into because they've got the visuals. So it's a lot easier to understand some of these quite, dense sci-fi concepts with the visuals to help explain it to you.
Well, in the book it's just a wall of text.
Yeah, in the book it's a wall of text, but also a wall of text that's got all the jargon in it, and then it doesn't explain any of the jargon. So it took me a really long time to understand what the fuck was going on when I read the book. Whereas in the series, you get into it. It is hard to get into, or not hard to get into, but it's hard to understand what's going on. It only took like 1 or 2 episodes of the series where I was like halfway through the book before I knew what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, no glossary or terms in the book then.
No. But yeah, it's good. I really, really liked the first series. Haven't seen the second, as I say, but I'm interested. I'm keen because one of the things I really liked about the first series was the lead actor.
Okay.
Can't remember his name, so that's not good.
I'll find out for you. Keep talking.
Okay. Yeah. So I really liked him. He was really good. Because he plays like this.
Chris Connor.
There you go. He plays like this, hard-boiled detective. He's not really a detective. He's been hired to be a detective, but he's actually, a criminal. But he's really good at figuring stuff out. Whatever, there's some lore.
Sounds like a detective to me.
He is a detective, basically. For this, it's essentially a murder mystery. But, there's loads of stuff going on as well.
Right. Great plot synopsis.
Okay, well, very, very brief plot synopsis is then he's hired to solve a crime, but of a man who's supposedly shot himself, but he's still alive.
Right.
And the man who's still alive, because there's a whole thing like they've got clones and shit, so he's still alive. But the man who's been shot in the head and he's like refuses to believe that he would ever kill himself. So he's like, I have been murdered. Solve this for me because I would not kill myself, and someone's just made me look like I've killed myself. Solve this for me.
Right.
And there's you go from there, and he gets help from this police lady she's brilliant in the series. Actually, she was another highlight. The 2 lead characters are just amazing, I think.
Would that be Renee Elise Goldsberry?
Possibly. Let's go with that.
Okay. Some quality researching right there on the fly.
Yep. But yeah, it's good. Good acting. Some really good sci-fi. Some excellent action. It's very, very graphic in places.
Right.
But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and that's available on Netflix. I
Yeah.
plan to be watching that soon as well.
Yeah,
Because my
I plan
dad
to watch
watched the
series
first
2
episode,
soon as well. Yeah.
and he was like, "Yeah, let's watch the rest." So
Okay.
we shall comment on that later. Hopefully, by the
Yeah.
time we get to the fundamentals, I might have seen some of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah?
will do a fundamental on that. Yeah.
Okay. Before we stray too far away from Disney Plus, I'm going to do one of my fundamentals.
Okay.
Now, firstly, before I continue, don't buy Disney Plus. If you haven't already bought it, don't buy it.
Don't
But
feed them more money.
yeah, don't sell your soul away. But on the condition that you might have bought it for a moment of weakness, whatever, there's something you've got to watch, which maybe some people don't know about or don't know is on there. Gravity Falls, which is an animated series made. I mean, it was definitely produced by Disney, but it was sort of had its own creative spirit. It was created by Alex Hirsch. I don't think he's actually done anything else, or he is working on something currently. But it's, I'd say, probably similar to something like. It's got the same sort of almost 80s sensibility as something like Stranger Things, the sort of nostalgia of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially the plot is these two twins, about, I think is it 11-year-old or 12-year-olds? I can't quite remember.
I can't remember.
They're tweens though.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and they're sent
well, I was
away
gonna
to.
say-
I'll go on.
Yeah, okay, go. No, I was just gonna say,
What?
like you mentioned that it doesn't feel very Disney-esque. Like it's got,
Yeah.
they've managed to maintain an awful lot of creative control because there's not
Yeah,
Disney hasn't got their grubby little hands on it, you know.
yeah, which is rare for something that was shown originally on the Disney Channel itself,
Yeah.
and yet feels so sort of anarchic in its humour.
Well, because Alex Hirsch has also worked on Rick and Morty as well.
Yeah,
And
he's very
in a
close
way,
friends
you
with
can-
with
Dan Harmon.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah. But you can see there's a lot of that same creativity there, I think.
Yeah,
It's almost
same sort of
like
love
Rick
for,
and Morty for kids.
yeah, and better.
Oh.
But you can also tell there's that same sort of like love for older like science fiction and sort of horror and that same pop culture sort of awareness as in Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the plot of it is basically these two kids are sent to Gravity Falls, Oregon, for the summer with their great uncle Stan, who is a con man who has the Mystery Shack, this great sort of house of, really fake oddities designed as a tourist trap, entirely for money. But the teens then discover there's more to Gravity Falls than originally meets the eye, and there's a lot of strange goings on, which then eventually evolves into a greater mystery.
Yes.
But yeah, it's primarily aimed at kids and is enjoyable for all ages. But there's a lot in there for adults to enjoy. In terms of there's a lot of the humor is just funny to everyone. It's one of the things I like about it so much. It's the perfect example of family entertainment. As kids can watch it and enjoy it, but everyone can get something out of it. It's sort of appropriate for all ages in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And some of the
It's
jokes
very
actually get
good.
quite dark.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen random episodes of probably series 1, but also possibly series 2. Like I don't really know. I've watched it out of order, completely random episodes. But what I've seen of it, I really liked.
Yeah,
So-
you've got to watch it in order as well.
Yeah.
Especially season 1 is sort of mainly sort of self-contained episodes. But once you get to season 2, the mystery kicks in proper, and you've got to watch it in order.
Yeah.
And the payoff for it all is like one of the greatest sort of finales of all TV. Like Game of Thrones could take notes from the finale of Gravity Falls.
I mean, Game of Thrones could take notes from the finale of anything.
Yeah, that's true. Game of Thrones can just take notes in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gravity Falls. If you love sort of retro sort of sci-fi horror pop culture things, sort of like Stranger Things, and you like mysteries and you like quirky sort of quite self-aware humor, Gravity Falls
The animation
absolutely
is
banging show.
spectacular as well.
is as well. Yeah, and also just all the characters in it are all in their own way so funny and so sort of creative. Like every character has a distinctive personality and voice, and each will have their own sort of type of jokes, and they all work so well together.
Yeah.
It's very well written. It's just
Yes.
a really good show. Watch Gravity
Yeah.
Falls. You watch Gravity Falls as well.
I shall.
You better.
It's on my
Now
list.
that you've sold
got
your
planned.
soul to the devil.
So one of my recommendations, I've got one. Another
Okay.
thing on Netflix.
Yes.
Netflix original, I do believe, is Love, Death and Robots.
Yes. Which I also
So
have somehow not seen yet. Despite it being right up my street.
Yeah, it's right up your street, but it's also just really, really good. So it's 18 shorts, animated shorts, and they've all got something to do with robots. Very, very,
And Love
very
and Death?
loosely. And Love and Death, but, more...
More on
the
the
connecting
robots.
factor is like sci-fi, and there's always something to do with, robots or AIs or whatever. And there's some really, really good ones. So I've seen like the first 6, I think, out of 18, and there's just some really great little animations. They're all very entertaining. There's some that are definitely a lot stronger than others. Like for example, there's one with Topher Grace in it, of Spider-Man 3 fame.
Ah,
If you
the best
remember him.
one.
Yeah,
Was that Venom in Spider-Man 3?
he was.
Okay. I'm thinking of the right person.
Yeah. And there's just a really good one. I don't really know what else I can say other than just...
Well, it's difficult because it's a
It's an
anthology.
anthology.
So there's no... You can't describe the overall plot.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you
It's
like
just-
Black Mirror, it's in the same kind of vein, isn't it? But shorter.
Yes. Yeah.
Are they as
but
dark
they're
as
all
that?
a lot shorter. Some of them are very dark, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Some of them
I
are
like to
very,
hear that.
very dark. I think the second one... So yeah, the second episode is like photorealistic animation, sort of. But not, not like proper, like, it looks like a video game cutscene, but a very, very well made one,
Yeah.
It
The thing
looks
is that each one's got a different animation style, isn't it? And
Yes.
yeah.
And that one's a particularly good one, I think. Which is, it's good. Anyway, yeah, what's your second recommendation, Nick?
My second recommendation is a little series called Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Did this last week.
Yeah, but last week got sort of thrown in the bin, didn't it? I didn't
True.
actually recommend it last week. I just ended up talking about it because that's normally what happens when you talk to me about TV for any length of time. So Neon Genesis Evangelion is an anime from the 90s. It was basically made in response to like sort of Gundam mecha kind of animes that most people probably know, even if they've not seen them. Only Evangelion, I think parody is probably the wrong word, but sort of takes the concept of it and turns it on its head and does it in an entirely new way and focuses entirely on the characters. In essentially, it talks about depression and mental health and these very damaged, imperfect characters interacting with each other in horrific apocalyptic circumstances. So it's not a very it's not an uplifting watch by any means, but
Great.
it's basically maybe one of the most artistically conscious shows I've ever seen on TV. In that it's very much it's difficult to get into. I'll give it that. Like it's not the kind of thing you'll probably get on the first watch through. I think I've seen it 4 times now, and it's definitely the kind of thing that gets better every time you see it, and you get more familiar with it because it's told in quite a sort of. It definitely has a very particular style to it. There's a lot of sort of like long takes. There's a lot of sort of lots of periods of silence and sort of contemplation, and certainly towards the end of it, it gets very sort of metaphysical and sort of abstract in a way that it's often difficult to know exactly what's going on. But that's sort of the point of it because it's all about that confusion, the mess inside of characters' heads as they try to come to terms with themselves. But on the other hand, there's robots beating up aliens.
Yeah.
So it all balances out.
This is the series. Didn't it famously run out of money? Is this that one?
Sort of. It's kind of debatable to what extent it ran out of money, but essentially, it's what was supposed to be the in theory the big climactic ending got cut short. I think they say because of budget, although I don't think it's ever been officially confirmed. So the last 2 episodes are done are entirely just inside the main character's head and done like hand drawn on paper. And there was a lot of outrage at the time about how this is not a good enough ending. It didn't close it, which I mean there's whole essays and stuff debating it to how good of an ending it is. But then of course about 2 years later there was End of Evangelion, which was released as a feature film, which essentially the director's response to like, all right fuckers, if you want an ending, here's an ending.
Okay.
And that's so it's on the concept of this, while we're talking about recommending it, what you need to do is watch the first 24 episodes of Evangelion, then stop, watch End of Evangelion, then go back and watch the last 25 and 26 episodes.
Okay.
As in last 2 episodes, there's not 25 and 26 more. But because this is something I worked out last time I watched it, that's the better viewing order. Because you can see in those last 2 episodes, you can see the sort of the fragments of what then became End of Evangelion, but not realised properly. And because it's all in Shinji, the main character's head, we don't get the wider context as to why these characters are where they are. When in the film, it makes a lot more sense. So I'd say definitely watch the film version of the last 2 episodes, all of which are available on Netflix.
Yep. That's good.
And you should probably stop me now before I start talking too much about the
meaning. Okay, please do stop, because I have nothing to contribute at all to this conversation.
But yeah, on a conclusionary note, even if you don't like anime, I mean, it gets quite Japanesey, and you certainly will. Like, it's definitely a very Japanese series. But even if you don't like anime, check it out.
Sorry, the term Japanesey is top tier.
But the thing is, as well, it's very influential. Once you watch it, you'll see that there's actually a lot of Western creators take inspiration from it. The most obvious way, for example, Pacific Rim, is arguably
of course, yeah,
a cannibalization of it, but with none of the interesting character bits that made Evangelion work so well.
I'm really salty about it.
I'm not salty, but like Pacific Rim is basically if someone took all the fun action bits out of Evangelion and dropped all the actual really interesting abstract character stuff, which is sort of what you're there for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even I, like, a lot of the things I've written over the last couple of years, I take sort of cues from Evangelion, even it's just like sort of in terms of pacing and stuff. Like some of the films and videos I've edited in recent years, I've sort of taken that same kind of style of editing and pacing from Evangelion. So
yeah,
it resonates with me personally because it just seems like such a great sort of there's some great impenetrable artistic force behind it that I really, really resonates with me. So yeah, and now it's for the longest time it wasn't really available properly over here legally, and now it is.
Nick, I asked you to stop like ages ago. Shut up.
It's on Netflix. Please watch Evangelion. Okay.
Okay.
I told you can chat me up about it. It's a great show, and you should watch it as well.
Please stop. Okay.
And that's
enough of Field of Streams before I blow my brains out.
Right.
Okay, so I'd like to talk very briefly about Inglourious Basterds.
Okay.
In last week's episode, we did talk about Inglourious Basterds for quite a long time, actually.
It was about 30 minutes you spent on it.
Yeah.
I think.
But obviously that was lost because you can't really have a debate about a film when you could only hear one person.
Yeah. I've checked and rechecked the microphone so many times for this week, so we should be good.
Yeah.
We better be.
So I just want to talk a couple of things about it. I don't want to rehash all the things because...
Okay. But if we summarise our main points, yeah.
Yeah. So my main thoughts on it was that basically, I don't know, I like parts of it, but also there's a lot of it that feels like Tarantino's trying to show off.
Which is, I mean, that's Tarantino.
Yeah, it is Tarantino.
It's sort of unavoidable in a way.
I remember studying this, or like the opening couple of minutes of this film in university, and apparently even the opening credits font is a reference to some old film that no one's fucking seen. It's like, who gives a shit, Tarantino? Who cares? Oh, but I mean, possibly. I don't know.
Because
But all I know is
like
that
a 70s version. I'm not sure
Yeah.
to what extent it's a remake of it, or if it's just the title. But
apparently, well, I was doing some research on this just to look it up. Apparently, the Inglourious Basterds were real, but obviously
All right.
has Tarantinoified them
Oh yeah, I
to
think
a
there's
very,
definitely
very heavy extent.
a lot of artistic license in Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
Certainly towards the end.
Yes, definitely. So one of the so the other thing I wanted to mention was taste and whether this is considered poor taste. And then I would like to do a very brief comparison to Jojo Rabbit, because I know we've talked about Jojo Rabbit quite a lot.
So this will be a spoiler for Inglourious Basterds as well. So if you haven't seen it, do skip ahead.
And probably Jojo Rabbit as well, because
Yeah, to some extent, certainly, yeah.
So, well, the climax of Inglourious Basterds, in a classic Tarantino fashion, there's all these random, various plot threads of all these different characters.
Yeah,
all
converging
meet in
by the main storylines. Yeah.
And then basically the scene there's lots of various bits and bobs. I just don't know how I feel about it changing history. So there, at the end of the film, there's a bit with a man machine gunning Hitler and then them blowing up a cinema full of Nazis.
Yeah, including all the top ranking officials.
Yes.
Of Nazi Germany, yeah.
And it just seemed so weirdly out of place, voyeuristic, look at this explosive violence towards Nazis, because I don't know whether you know this, but I'm Tarantino and I'm a genius and I've recognised that Nazis, they're bad guys. It's wow, fucking revolutionary Tarantino. You should tell the historians that.
Look at it.
Yeah, it's so... Yeah. It's it is like gore porn, isn't it? It's just...
Yeah, pornography.
Pornography. It's good. It's just so hugely over the top, and it's my main problem with it is I don't really care about the violence or whatever. I don't care about that. What I care about is that didn't happen, in actual history. That's not even attempting to be what actually happened in actual history. Why? What's the point of showing that? That's very... It's. I felt like the only point of showing that was to just show, oh yeah, I'm killing Hitler. It's okay.
Yeah.
So
that's
what?
I really loved
doesn't add anything to the film.
But that moment with the machine gunning Hitler's face off, literally, was that was the one moment I was like, come on, enough of that, Tarantino. You're doing really nicely before. You don't need to do that. But what I will say,
so unnecessary,
in its defense, in terms of whether it really happened or not. Would you like to see Tarantino do a film that's trying to be historically accurate with his sensibilities? Because I feel having it be this didn't happen, this is my weird paranoid fantasy idea of World War II, and knowing that it's in its own universe is sort of better, because then he can be the freak that he is without... I think if he tried to do Schindler's List, essentially, that would be a lot more...
That would be even
in bad
worse,
taste. Yeah. But I suppose you could argue, because it is... The Bastards were a real group of people, you could argue there's still that sort of sense of...
Well, the thing is I feel like he's not giving enough gravitas to the situation. And,
there's definitely a levity to it.
Yeah, the amount of people that suffered and died, and that didn't happen in real life. And I just feel I don't know, it just feels like it's in bad taste. Whereas if you compare that to Jojo Rabbit never... it's a story set in history, but it never actively changes history, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it never... None of the things in it directly, change anything. But, so the climax of Jojo Rabbit takes place during, is it the raid of Berlin? I don't know what the correct word would be, but,
No, I think it's... Berlin's already... the attack of Berlin, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, but, the collapse of Berlin, shall we say. But, which happened, and there's nothing... in Jojo Rabbit that specifically goes against what did happen. It all sort of neatly fits into the diegesis of, real life. While Inglourious Basterds directly changes it. Yeah.
But I feel I don't know, it's an interesting question, because they're both not essentially, they're trying to do a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit, I would say, is not in bad taste because it's satire, isn't it? It's satire and it's comedy, and it's doing its utmost to show the flaws and the stupidity behind Nazi Germany and why it's bad through this satire and through taking the piss.
Like Jojo Rabbit's probably more intelligent. Like
a lot more intelligent, I think. Whereas the Tarantino's approach is just just kill it. It's like that's not really stopping it from happening again, is it?
Yeah. Also, Jojo Rabbit on the whole is a lot more of a wholesome sort of film.
Yeah.
It's basically about a child unlearning what he's been brainwashed and learning to accept people through it, and like taking down the divides between people. While Inglourious Basterds doesn't have any major philosophy outside of, the Nazis aren't great, are they?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other thing I would bring up is like there is a set of characters throughout the film. It's like set there to what I assumed was to be humanizing a Nazi private. He's like a Nazi soldier. He's a sniper.
It's the star of Nation's Pride, isn't he?
Yes, he's the star of Nation's Pride, and he's like, but you don't know that he's he's a Nazi, but you don't know he's like this. He's famous for killing a load of people or whatever. You just know that he's a Nazi, but also he just seems like a very nice person. And I thought this was going a very long way to humanize him. Like, he's very humble. He's very nice about it. Doesn't really care about his past achievement. He just wants to... He's just a fan of cinema or whatever. And I was like, it's going a really long way to humanize it. And then at the end, he just fucking dies and there's nothing...
No payoff to it.
There's no payoff to that humanization at all. Because I thought, like, that would be a really nice touch if they were like...
not all the Nazis were necessarily...
Not all the Nazis were...
By philosophy.
Not all,
some of them were just German soldiers conscripted in and had to fight.
Exactly. Like, he's just a private. He's not anywhere near a high-ranking Nazi. He's just a soldier doing his job. And I thought that was, a very interesting take on it. And then he fucking dies. And then they blow the cinema full of Nazis up. And it's like, well... I haven't really learned anything from this, have we? It's just look at Nazis die. Look how great this is. Look how amazing we are. And it's like, well, it's just there's no nuance there, is there?
Yeah, because I think the one reason I really like Bastards so much more than the rest of Tarantino's stuff is because outside of those moments, there's flashes of brilliance in there from where he seems his most restrained. So, like, you're talking about the opening sequence.
Yes.
To be honest, it's basically most scenes involving Christoph Waltz, who's the powerhouse of that. So there's the opening scene with the farmhouse. There's the underground bar scene, which has also been analysed in other places. And then also for me there was the strudel scene in the restaurant.
Yes, again,
which was
good.
Was that's what Tarantino could do if he was subtle. Like, there's so much underlying, like, unspoken menace in that scene when all they're talking about is how much he likes strudel. And that's masterful filmmaking, and it frustrates me to watch that and be like, why can't you do this normally?
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. I should point out, like, there are parts of it that are really seriously good.
Yeah.
Like, again, anything with Christoph Waltz in it, like, all those bits are really, really good. The opening scene is fantastic. And again, as you said, the bar scene with Michael Fassbender is really, really good. Like, the tension he manages to build is just outstanding. Like, throughout those scenes, you're just on the edge of your seat completely.
Yeah, and so much of it is, like, subtextual as well.
Yeah.
Like, in both
there's
those
a lot
scenes,
of it that's just absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I did like it.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, it's not my favourite Tarantino film by any means. And also... I don't know. I just don't like Tarantino as a person, I don't think.
No. I definitely don't like him as a person. And overall, as a filmmaker, I'm sort of lukewarm.
Yeah.
Because, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the only film of his that I've actually, like, disliked. The rest of them I all think are sort of ranging from fine to, like, pretty good. And Bastards I really enjoyed. Although I do want to rewatch it now, having had this discussion, and see maybe if my opinion's changed at all.
Yeah.
But even, like, Pulp Fiction, which... I do enjoy, but I've always felt, like, unsatisfied from watching it. I think part of it can be explained through Bastards, because Pulp Fiction has the same kind of, like, multi-narrative strands interweaving, but Pulp Fiction very deliberately doesn't go anywhere with it, and it's sort of just, doesn't have a clear beginning or end as such. It's sort of just stuff that happens. Or what I like about Basterds is like 3 or 4 distinct plots starting from different places, all converging on a point, which I find is a lot more satisfying story-wise.
Yes. Yeah, I can
And that's
see
like the other
that.
strength.
I just feel like I enjoy Pulp Fiction more. I don't know why. Like, I feel like Pulp Fiction has really good dialogue, but also I don't know. Maybe it's being set in America. More like,
It's not messing. It's not stepping around history in the same way Bastards is. Maybe.
Yeah, I just
That
feel
rubs you
like
up the wrong way.
Inglourious Basterds is such an eggshell subject to fuck about with as much as he does, you know.
Right.
And I feel like he just does a terrible job of being, you know, if it was more subtle, it could be fine. If there was any sort of nuance there at all, I'd be fine with it. There's just not, because it's just so...
Well, there is just in other places and not...
Yeah, in other places. I'm talking about the
it's
climax
intermittent.
specifically. Yeah.
Which maybe is like extra frustrating to show that in the same film he's capable of doing it and doesn't later.
Yeah.
Have you seen Django Unchained?
I enjoy Pulp Fiction a lot more. Have I seen what?
Have you seen Django Unchained?
No, I haven't. That is the next one on the list.
Okay, because I'm going to say, on the subject of, like, you know, eggshell topics, obviously that's about slavery.
Yes.
So interested to see what your reaction to that is. But again, I'm not an expert in terms of anything history-wise, but I don't know, I think it's, you know, set in that period, but not specifically using any real characters or real events. So I think it's in its own sort of, like, bubble of a universe again. So that might get away with
that
more.
That is actually an interesting point. Yeah, I'll give it a watch, because that would be an interesting discussion to have as well.
Because that one is also like on the upper tier of Tarantino for me, at least. But again, I've not seen it for years, so I don't know anymore.
Yeah,
might have to rewatch it.
I'll give it a watch.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
And you've got a fundamental to close us with, haven't you?
Yes. Should be a short one. I'm not really sure how much I've got to say about it, and also I don't think you've. Whereas with Harry Potter, you've seen and read it. Whereas this week, I'm going to do a series of unfortunate events.
Right. Well, I mean, I saw the film from 2005, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I've seen
that's a whole different thing that I'll rant about thoroughly at a different time, I'm sure.
I imagine you will. I trust you will. And I've seen the first 2 episodes of a Netflix series, which I believe is what you're talking about today, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
never read the books.
Yeah. So you won't have as much to contribute.
That's fine.
Here we go.
This is your area.
Yeah. So this week, I want to talk about a series of unfortunate events, specifically the eighth book, which is called The Hostile Hospital, and it will be in series 2. I don't know what episode it is, but it's in series 2 of a series of unfortunate events on Netflix, which has Neil Patrick Harris as Count Olaf.
Yes.
He's a vastly superior Count Olaf to Jim Carrey, but that's again a different thing. I can do an entire fundamental on them, which I will do because I've got a lot to say about them. But this one is specifically about Count Olaf, right? So, in the book, this is massive spoilers for both the book and series, by the way.
Yes. So skip to the end if you haven't seen either and care.
Yeah.
Yeah. There will be time codes in the video and stuff.
Yeah. So, in the book, very, very quickly, they are trying to escape from this hospital, and Count Olaf has set fire to the hospital, which is his MO, is he sets fires, whatever. So the orphans, Sonny, Klaus, and Violet Baudelaire, are trying to escape this hospital that is on fire, right?
Right.
So Count Olaf has set this fire, and he's got out of the hospital, but he has sent one of his henchmen in there to chase after the Baudelaires and make sure they don't escape. Basically, to, kill them essentially, because he's after their fortune because they're rich. Whatever. That's some, whatever. Okay. So the main difference is, right, in the book, this henchman is chasing them constantly. It's really a tense chase scene through this hospital. They manage to lock themselves in a cupboard and escape through the window. Right. While the hospital's on fire. So in the film, it's exactly the same setup, and there's only one very small change, but it fundamentally changes the character, and it'll get my blood going.
I look forward to it.
So in the book, this henchman who's, massive, like really strong and muscly and whatever, is trying to bash down the door. And so that's the threat, basically. It's like, can they escape? Can they get through this window and escape and jump down to the ground before he breaks through and kills them? And they do. Spoilers. They do. They manage to escape, but they leave him in there, inside this burning hospital, where he burns to death and he dies. Right.
Right.
So he's just dead. And Count Olaf doesn't give a fuck. He's never mentioned again. Count Olaf doesn't give a shit. Right?
Yeah.
In the series, however, Count Olaf, so in the book, Count Olaf just fucking leaves. He just gets in his car and goes. Right? And it's a big difference, because in the series, Count Olaf not only stops and waits for his henchman, but the henchman is also alive.
Oh, what?
And gets in the back of the car, and then they leave and drive off or whatever. But this is such a huge change, because it completely changes Count Olaf's character, because the whole point is that Count Olaf is so heartless and so soulless that he doesn't even give a fuck about his own henchmen. The people who have devoted their lives to him, he couldn't care less about them. They are nothing to him. And when one of them dies, he's just like, oh, whatever. And in the next book, he's literally like, oh man, I need to, my troops getting thin. I need to get some new recruits, because they keep fucking dying. But he doesn't give a shit, Yeah. That's the point.
They're just cattle to him.
Yeah. Whereas in the series, it's like, it gives him a heart, because he's got to wait for the dude to get in the back of the car before they can drive away. And then it also doesn't make sense, because in the second, and then in the next episode, then when he was like, oh, I need some new recruits, it's like, why? You've got your full troop, because you haven't killed off any of them. And this happens in the series before, because there's another instance where a character's supposed to die and they just don't. And it's like, why? I know, I understand. So the reason why, I imagine, is because it's aimed towards kids, the show is.
But so is the book, isn't it?
The book is, but the book's got this very dark undertone, and they never shy away from death at any point. Right. Like, the whole point is that, look, death surrounds these kids and they rise above it, And even, Count Olaf. But what I'm trying to say is the fundamental difference is it makes Count Olaf a much worse character, because he's such a good villain because of how little he cares. The only thing he cares about is getting more money. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's so heartless and so ruthless that he doesn't care. I mean, I've said that like 3 times.
Could you make the argument, though, that like what they do is they're essentially humanizing him, and therefore they say the best villains are the ones that are humanized and you can sort of understand, as opposed to like the soulless, unthinking sort of villains who sort of just like march through.
No. But it's not really like that, or at least it's not really written like that.
Okay.
Because he's still human, like, especially if you read the last book, he's very, very intensely humanized in that last book. Which I won't get into because I don't want to spoil that one. But they do that in the last book. But the whole point is, like, that's supposed to be a revelation that he is, he humanized. Whereas, but also the point of the last book as well is to show that how much the kids have grown up, so that they can see him as a person, not just this ruthless villain.
Right.
But also, I do think it's important that we do still see him as this ruthless villain, because then in the series, the way it plays out is just really, it's like they're coddling you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, they can't die because this is a kids show and no one can die in the kids show. It's like their parents have literally fucking died on screen already. Why can't we have this guy die?
Well, hang on. I mean, I swear there was something about their parents are actually alive the whole time, aren't they?
Well, that is a whole plot thread, but...
Oh, okay.
We won't go into that.
Okay. I mean, this is from seeing 2 episodes of the series, and I remember that being like a twist at the end of the second one. But
We won't go into that.
okay.
Because that's the other thing. The series changes a lot of the books, and so the author of the books, so is Dan Handler. He does write some of the episodes, I think, or he produces the series, and he does help write some of the screenplays. But the series adds a lot of unnecessary things, I think. So this is another quick fundamental on the side.
Go on. Double up.
Double up. For me, reading it as a child and, then as a teenager, I mean, I haven't read them for probably 4 or 5 years, but whatever. So reading them, the whole point is that the adults in the story are really fucking stupid.
Right.
And it's supposed to be about how these kids learn and grow, and they've got to be so independent and strong themselves because all of the adults in their lives are just useless and terrible or super duper evil and ruthless, right?
Just like in real life.
Just like in real life. And it's like, you don't know anything about this, so there's a mysterious Illuminati-esque thing that is called the VFD, which their parents were part of, and it seems like all their people have something to do with the VFD, and you don't really ever find out what the VFD is properly. Like you get a lot more, and you found out a lot more later, so you get a very vague idea of what they're about. You never really truly find out who their parents were. All these massive secrets, and I think a massive part of the books is not knowing things.
Yeah, is the mystery, and not
the mystery is the great unknown. And
not every question.
Whereas
is
in
answered.
but it makes everything so much more intriguing because you're like, oh, I want to read the next one because you want to find out, this and that. But you're you are as in the dark as the characters are in the book. Whereas in the series, there's so many little asides where it gives away loads of, like Easter eggs that give away loads of future plot points that are very important plot points. And it's like, I feel like that was really, I don't know, it just felt so unnecessary. And it's like, but we as the audience now know stuff from, the last book that the characters won't know until the last episode. It's like, why are you showing us that now? Because when that's revealed to the characters later, it's going to be a lot less impactful.
Right.
And it just adds a load of stuff, and it's just annoying. Basically, the book's really good, the series is okay, the film is fucking trash tier, and I hate it.
Oh, okay. So I mean, having never read the books or anything, I thought the film was, well, to be fair, it's been a long time since I saw it, but I remember it being okay. I imagine you take great affection to that.
It's just Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey, but this time in a series of unfortunate events.
We'll get on to why you hate that another time, then, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless you want to keep going.
No, it's fine. Also, I'm not sure. Well, a fundamental way, again, you've got nothing to add is like you doing something about Evangelion when I've got nothing to add. Do you see what I mean, though, about that change? That's a very small change, and it's like...
I mean, you're right about how that... I mean, that is a seemingly small change, but it does completely change from being like, being ruthless and caring only about money to being like... to have... Because I remember in the first episode of the series, he has like this whole troupe, like an acting troupe.
Yes.
And acting troupe, yeah. And even though I was unfamiliar with like most of the series and stuff, it seemed weirdly out of place. Like, why has he got friends? He doesn't seem like the kind of person. He seems like the kind of person who operates alone.
Exactly. Well, so that's the thing is he doesn't. In the book, they're never his friends. They are his troupe, his minions, his henchmen.
Yeah.
At no point are they his friends. Like, he doesn't care about them at all. They are there to serve him.
Yeah.
The
series doesn't have the same vibe. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. They feel like a troupe. They feel like a group of friends trying to do this, evil thing or whatever. The other thing I would say is that just throughout, like, again, the whole point is that by the end, spoilers, but by the end, by the final book, Count Olaf's by himself. And I think that's the point, is that he's so heartless and uncaring, and he just doesn't care about his troop. And when they die, he doesn't care, to the point where he is by himself. But the only reason he was by himself is because he's so heartless and uncaring. And he's in that situation because he is an asshole, Yeah. And I think that works so well in the books, whereas in the series, by the end, he's still got his whole fucking troop, and it's like, well, it doesn't have anywhere near the same emotional impact.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same teeth to it if you can't kill them off.
Yeah. Exactly, and it's not like they're good guys. Like, I could understand if when a good guy dies, they decided to save them. But because they're bad guys, it's like, why have you got such attachment
they're
to
henchmen,
them?
they're disposable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also really random songs in
the series.
In the series. It's like, again, I know it's supposed to be for kids, and I also know it's Neil Patrick Harris who had a really massive hand in creating it. And he puts a lot of song and dance in there. But it's like, why? Again, it's sort of just detracts from the characters because it makes them more comical and jovial. And it's like, so that's the biggest problem I have with Jim Carrey, and to a lesser but still a strong extent with Neil Patrick Harris, is that in the books, Count Olaf is evil, right? He is not a comical character.
No.
He is the bad guy. He is evil. He is literally trying to kill a bunch of children to steal their money. He doesn't care about killing people. It's not a problem to him. He doesn't care about setting fire to a fucking hospital. He's not a comical character.
Yeah, and he's also shown in both the film and the series is quite sort of flamboyantly depicted. I take it in the book he's a lot more sort of clear cut.
Well, in the book he is flamboyant, but he's got some funny bits, but they're not. They really ham up the humour, especially the Jim Carrey one, where it's like, in the film Jim Carrey is not scary. It's like, it's Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey. It's like, Count Olaf isn't that. He's supposed to be evil. You're supposed to fear him, like the kids do. And it's like, the kids in the books like have nightmares about him because of how haunted by him they are, because of how evil he is and how much he's ruined their lives. Whereas in the fucking film and TV show, it's just like, oh yeah, haha, funny man. It's like, no, that's just wrong. He's not supposed to be funny. He's supposed to be evil. Put him evil first, funny later,
Yeah.
It's just a change that I think ruins the character. Like, Neil Patrick Harris is decent at it because he still has some very good evil moments in it. But
he's not evil enough.
He's not evil enough, They don't get, especially when they throw a fucking musical number in there. It's like, just why?
It's Dr. Horrible too.
Well, yeah, it feels like that, It's like, no.
Neil Patrick Harris's contract is he can't play a villain without breaking into song.
Yeah, clearly. Gone Girl was a different movie,
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think we're about done for today then.
Yeah.
Or have you got any final things?
Jim Carrey sucks. Please give me Neil Patrick Harris instead, or just not. Give me the book.
Just give me the book. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this week's Ciné Rambles. You've been listening to Nick
and Andrew.
You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CinéRamblesOfficial and follow us on Twitter at Ciné Rambles. And for more content, you can read the blog over at cinerambles.blogspot.com. And of course, if you'd like to send in any reviews or viewpoints or suggestions, as we've had on the show today, you can email us at cinerambles@gmail.com. And hopefully you'll be able to read out whatever you've written on the show. Yeah. Any last final remarks then, besides...
Don't kill Hitler. Wait. No.
No, you've spoken. Don't kill Hitler. It's a Ciné Rambles official message. Goodbye.
Goodbye.